Hi students, I've gotten some questions from your teachers about EasyBib. So I wanted to take a minute to try to explain to you how to use this great tool properly. When you come down to the library, many times you've heard me say that EasyBib is not a smart tool. You are the smart research brain. You need to help EasyBib in order to get a citation that's worth turning into your teachers. So I want to point out a few things to you to help you along. MLA 8 is the correct format, and that's the default format now on EasyBib, which is a good thing. I'm going to try to cite a sample article. Okay, this is a New York Times article that I found on the internet that I want to use in my upcoming paper. So I am going to go to EasyBib. I'm going to paste in the URL, and I'm going to say cite it. Now this is what 99% of you do when you find something on the internet, okay? Now, this was a New York Times article, but I just pasted into website, okay? This is the first problem that we have here, okay? Now I'm going to follow along and see if I can tell you where most students go wrong. When you click cite this, you're going to notice that EasyBib is trying to help you. It's telling you that it found some of the information, but it didn't find all of the information for the article that you asked it to cite. So we're going to do what most students do, which is continue to the final step. And this is a step where you're allowed to change the things that are appearing in your citation. Now the first thing I want you to change is this, and this is something you should look at on everything that you ask EasyBib to cite. This source type says content published originally on a website, which may be true for this, but we can get closer to what this actually is. This is actually an online newspaper. It's an online edition of the New York Times. So we want to change this. Now look, EasyBib says right away they're redirecting us to the proper form. Now here's why citing a newspaper matters in this case. You want to look at the three tabs here. You can cite three different kinds of newspapers. A print newspaper, like the one I keep on the library desk. An online newspaper, like the one that we're currently working with, that New York Times article. Or something you found in a database. In this case, that would be maybe a copy of the New York Times that's accessible via ProQuest. Now, I've told you this over and over, but just so you remember, you always want to cite a database from the database. So there will be a citation in the database. Use that one. Cut and paste that. Don't bother importing it into EasyBib. It's just going to make it more difficult for you. So use the one that's in the database. Just copy and paste that. But we want to use this article, which is out on the web, and it's an online article. Okay, so we're going to look at what EasyBib has given us. Okay. We have some choices here as far as when the newspaper was created. We also have the article title, which has been filled in for us. But remember, EasyBib was asking us before to find an author for this article. Now, it's a New York Times article. This has to have an author, right? Yes, look, exactly. EasyBib couldn't find it, but it's right here. Jonathan Martin is our author. So we're going to go back to EasyBib, and we're going to type that in. And it's important you put his last name and first name in the proper fields, because EasyBib, like I said, not a smart tool, it's going to pull those fields to make the citation. So if you have those names in the wrong order, it's going to create a citation that doesn't work for you. All right, all the other fields seem to be filled in. So we're going to go down and say create citation. All right, so here's our citation. We've got our author, our article title, the New York Times, which is where we got our information from, the date it was published, and the URL. The URL, this address, is required in MLA 8. Your teachers, many of them, have asked you to put it in before, but now it's actually a required element of your MLA style. Okay, so make sure that you're including that. Now you'll notice that it is not an actual live link here. It's just the address. But you want to keep that in mind, that you want to make sure that's part of what you're turning in for your teacher. So here's an example. This is my works cited page. I have two different things in this Works Cited page. The first entry, you may look familiar because this is our New York Times article. And this is how the article citation would have looked if we hadn't called it an online newspaper. Now remember, EasyBib couldn't find the author. So EasyBib, not knowing any better, has left it out in this case. The other thing is, we never told EasyBib in this case that it was a New York Times article. Remember, it thought it was a website. So when EasyBib is citing a website, it pulls information from the web page that tells it more about what it's citing. So look what it's done here. It's given us the New York Times twice because it's recognizing it as two different pieces of the citation. But that's not correct. If you look down here, this is the correct citation, the one that we just made together. Remember, we had to put in the author's name, which always comes first. Then we have the article title, we have the New York Times, but only once this time because it's recognizing it's the newspaper, and then the date that the article was published. Finally, we finish up with the URL. And as I said, this is not required to be a live link. You'll notice in my document, I've made it one. I would do this at the discretion of your teacher. If they want you to have a live link, perfectly fine. But know that when you get to college, this is not going to be a required element. You'll need to have the citation, you'll need to have the URL, but you don't need it to be a live link. Okay? The other thing I wanted to show you here is EasyBib 8 or MLA 8 on EasyBib has a couple of different changes from prior citation models. So what you did at middle school or what you even did last year in some cases is not the same style you would use today. So look what we have here. We have the article title. In this case, this is a correctly cited MLA 8 for this website from the Mayo Clinic, which is about the flu. Okay. Now, since this is a Mayo Clinic article, I'm going to look to see if it has an author, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't. Yep, see, it says it's by Mayo Clinic staff. So I'm not going to put that in. Instead, I'm going to leave the citation as it looks here. I'm going to leave it with the article title first. Then we have information about the Mayo Clinic, including their long title, Mayo Foundation for Medical Education and Research, and the date that the article was published, followed by the URL. Okay? This, right below, is an incorrectly cited citation. Okay? Starts out well. Okay? Same. But the difference is this is cited according to the standards that we used in years past, before we got MLA 8. So we do have our title that it was published, but we also have this web, and we have the date we accessed it. Neither of these elements are included anymore in a citation. So if you come up with something that's suggesting print or web, that's an incorrect citation. You don't use that format anymore. Okay? You also know this is wrong because it doesn't include the URL. That's right. You have to have this. So this is why this second citation is incorrect and would get you points off if you were to turn it in. My best advice to you is EasyBib is a great tool, but you are the one that's running the show. So make sure that as you are deciding what to cite, apply good judgment to it. Figure out if what you're looking at makes sense. If it doesn't, you have a couple different places you can go for help. You could come down to the library and you could ask me. That's always an option. You could go to OWL at Purdue, which I recommended to all of you when you came in as freshmen. Great source where you can get more information about how to cite something properly. You can also go to the SBHS MLA guide, which is always a good and handy thing to know about. That's linked off my wiki page. It's also available in print form at the library desk. You can see that it has information on how to cite an in-text citation. It also has a brief description of what an MLA works cited should include, and it has an example on the back. So you'll see what one should look like. If your citation, generated by EasyBib or otherwise, comes out looking completely weird and different, come find out why. You can either do that, like I said, in person, you could send me an email, or you could try one of the online resources for more help. But make sure that you're doing your best to cite what you're using. This is a great practice to get into, and you want to make sure that you're doing it carefully. So again, if you need more help, feel free to stop down and ask for Mrs. Manganello.